Hello, everybody. My name is Sam Dolce, and I'm an attorney here with Milestone. I am so happy and proud and excited to be able to present Brooke Lively, who is not only one of my favorite people, but is also an expert at that really interesting connection point of law and finance and business and accounting and making the firm run. And so with Milestone, we do our Trusted Partner series where we talk to other people who are in the contingency fee attorney space, and we talk through things that we think our clients really should know about. And so today we have a 30-minute conversation planned with Brooke where we're going to learn a little bit more about her and what she does and kind of provide some really important tips of guidance to attorneys, hopefully now before tax season begins in earnest. Brooke, thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We're so happy you're here. And so I'm gonna just turn over to you for 1 second, just let you introduce yourself. And then I have a few questions that I'd like to ask if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I don't know what you want me to say. You did a great job. I am Brooke Lively. I'm the founder of CathCap, and we give strategic advice that drives profit. And that is 100% what we do. We do it by serving as outsourced CFOs. We do it through our COO services. But basically, we make law firms more profitable.
Awesome. So I know as a former trial attorney myself and growing up within a law firm, how many attorneys need this, and even attorneys that are great business people definitely need it too. How did you sort of see, how did Cath Capital really come to be built? Like, how did you see a need in the space? Did you, like, can you give us some of that background?
Well, like you, I grew up in a law firm. So my father's an attorney, my brother's an attorney, two of my uncles are attorneys. Pretty much every guy I dated is an attorney. Even the guys I dated in high school grew up to be attorneys. I got to find a new type to date. But I was working for a hedge fund, and my father liked to shed his partners every 7 to 10 years. And he had shed his partners, and for the first time in a long time, he lost the woman who ran his practice. And he came to me, he was like, can you help me set this practice up and get it going? And I was like, okay. Hedge fund didn't care. I was an analyst. They were like, you can analyze from anywhere. So I worked from his office 3 days a week, from Dallas 2 days a week. And eventually I quit the hedge fund and just ran his firm. And I probably did it a little differently. I'm an MBA CFA. I've got a dual degree in corporate finance and investment. So I really ran it as a business, and I used data and financials and numbers, and didn't realize this was uncommon, and had hired someone to help with sales and marketing. And his clients started to come to me and say, can you do for us what you're doing for your family's firm? And that's kind of how CathCap started. I was like, yeah, like, really? You don't do it this way? And so 10 years on, here we are.
That's so cool. That's awesome. And now I know you help contingency fee firms across the country, whether they're in their infant style stage or they're like your father's firm, and your father, huge reputation, great trial attorney, was really operating a large firm. So my next question sort of connects to that question, right? This idea that we're building up these law firm practices. Are there any sort of like concrete tips or guidance you can give to some of the attorneys that might be on today who are probably running, contingency fee, personal injury law firms, less than 10 attorneys, trying to figure out their practice?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and Sam, you know this because we're in the same space in this regard. It's all about planning. And right, I'm just going to say it. people in contingency practices are gamblers, right? I mean, you know it,
Yeah,
really.
maybe a little
I,
bit. Maybe there's a reason why Mass Torts Made Perfect isn't Vegas twice a year. All right, I'll just say
right. So there's, you guys have a high risk tolerance. You're ready to roll the dice. And so really planning and really understanding your cases and understanding what you have in inventory. Because your inventory really, you should know when a case is going to pay off the day you sign it up. You should have an idea of how much it's worth and when it's going to pay out. And if you've gone in and you've analyzed your cases now in the past, you can predict that. And it's that prediction, it's that knowing what your inventory is, when it's going to pay out, how it's going to pay out, that really starts to give you control of your firm. Because knowing that, you can make decisions. And Sam, this is where you guys come in. I think it's so cool when a firm wins a big case. My father, can I cuss?
yes.
Okay.
Don't
My
even hesitate.
father used to get what I called the fuckets. Every time he won something big, like he was just stinking useless for a few days. He'd kind of wander around the office with that silly grin on his face.
Yep, I know it.
Yeah.
I know that grin.
Everybody gets the fuckets, right? They're like, fuck it, I just won. Like, and I
Yep.
won a big thing. I was on a sales call with a guy recently, and he literally won a $5 million fee while I was on the phone with him in the middle of a sales call.
Wow.
Yeah, he kind of got a case of the fuckets for a phone call. But, how cool. But what was the planning behind that?
Yeah. Well, and
So what was the planning for his firm? How was he going to use that $5 million? Did he really need to take it all this year? Did he need to say, because it's a pretty young firm, they've only been around for 3 years. Did he need to call someone like you and say, okay, here's the deal. I want to take that $1 million a year for the next 5 years, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that to fund the firm so that I know I've got that money coming in.
so
Yeah, sorry.
I just have, this is exactly, and I just have two quick comments. One, so a lot of the times I get pushback. So I'm in this weird space of being in like business, law, and tax, and also around like advocates and activists who are like dedicated to social justice causes. And a lot of the time we use like the business language around this stuff, and I get a lot of pushback from the activist side of things. And people, but what I try to highlight is like, by doing this planning work, right? By analyzing your caseload, by understanding when the money's coming, how much that money's going to be there, and you're able to build a stronger business model. You're able to build a stronger practice.
Yeah.
You can better advocate for your clients. So when that attorney spreads that fee over those 5 years as $1 million a year to hire more people, to reach plaintiffs, to take a risk on that one case that might be a case that gives you the fuckets, or it might be a $0 case, right?
Right,
and you
because
really
now all the bills are paid, right? All the bills are paid. Now you can say, I'm going to take this case because I really want to help this person. It may or may not pay out, but I really feel called to help this person.
And so what I've heard from firms that have worked with you and your company is that a lot of the time there's a feeling of unease when you're running a contingency fee practice, right? There's unease over what does this Christmas look like compared to the next, or whatever holiday you celebrate, right? What does 5 years have in store for me? Can I really go buy that vacation property, right? Or am I really good to pay off my mortgage this year, right? And all of a sudden, by partnering with a company like Cath Cap, you get a clarity, you get a peace of mind, you get a ability to focus on, okay, the business side of this is being taken care of. I can focus on the legal side. I can focus on the case side. I can focus on the client side. And oftentimes what it leads to is better results, more successful company, not even off of, I mean, you're going to be saving them on taxes and et cetera, but not only on that, just on the ability to really fine tune your muscle.
Well, and that's the thing. So I do want to, there are some great advantages to the tax planning, but I'm going to take that off the table. There is something psychological that happens when you take the money stress out of your life. When you can go into a deposition and you're really focused and you're in the moment, and there's not a part of you that's going, okay, so I know I can make payroll this week. Can I make payroll in 2 weeks? All right, so if I push rent out and I kind of ignore the landlord and I push rent out for a week or two, like, you know how like you kind of play mental Tetris with the bills and you're like pushing stuff around. I'm like, that's okay. All right, well, if I bring on this new attorney, how much cash do I have? How long can I support them? And like, what is like, you don't have to do any of those mental gymnastics while you're taking a deposition. And I love this. I've got a client and he told me this recently and I just love it. And I'm going to cuss again. He said, so what he does is he does witness prep, and he is usually brought in when on either really huge cases or when a big case has started to go sideways. And on the big cases that go sideways, when he's brought in, his phrase is, the fuck up is in the workup. And he says 99% of the time it's gone wrong in the depositions.
Yep.
So somewhere in the workup of that case. So if you can actually concentrate on that deposition, if you're not worried about these other things, if you can actually be present when you're practicing law, your win rate goes up. As you said, you're more successful. Your win rate goes up. Your judgments get bigger. Like things happen better for you. If you can take care, if you can schedule out, if you can be confident that all those little niggly things are taken care of, like payroll and rent and all the other bills, if you don't have to worry about that stuff, oh my gosh, your life is just so much better.
So in what I do a lot of the time, a lot of the issues that come up, like I sometimes want to grab attorneys when I see them and just shake them because they don't focus on this part of it, right? Like they're amazing trial attorneys. They're 100% smarter than I will ever hope to be. And they're doing all these amazing things in their lives, but they just don't get like one thing, right? And I just have to like grab them and shake them and be like, you didn't do this. I was on a call recently with an attorney and they hadn't considered benefit preservation for more than 100 people who were getting $50,000 each, and all were assumingly on Medicaid due to the product that they had in their body, right? And so I was like, okay, so you did what? You just sent them it? Like, what do you do? Like, just I want to shake them, right?
Like, what are you thinking?
What are those moments for you? Because I'm sure there's a few of them. Because those I sometimes find is where the most valuable advice is. Or are there not those moments? But I doubt there are not those moments. To all the trial attorneys on, I love you all dearly. I'm so happy I get to work with you. It is truly the joy of my life. But also, you are all difficult in your own ways, and I love you, and you know that. Okay.
So what are the moments that I just want to shake an attorney and say, come on, get with the program?
Yes. What are those moments?
Oh my gosh, how long do we have left on this webinar?
You have 14 minutes, but I can extend it by 5 to 10.
Oh no, I think we're going to need more time than that.
Okay.
There are all kinds of things. I think that, you know, it's different for everyone. It's different for every practice. And so I'm going to give you really the ultimate attorney answer of it depends, right? I think though it's data. Really knowing the data that you have in your firm, keeping track of it. So it's using your practice management software, understanding what it does, understanding how to put data in there, and understanding how to get the data out makes an enormous difference. You've got to understand things like, what are the different stages of your cases? How long should a matter stay in each stage. You need to have some kind of something that tells you when a case has been in a stage too long. The faster you push a case, the more valuable it is. The faster you work a case, the more valuable it is. You need to understand how many cases an attorney can handle. You need to understand the attorney-paralegal relationship. All of this is information that comes out of your practice management software. So using it effectively, and then making sure that everybody has a number. And this, have you read Traction before by Gino Wickman?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I love that book. The first time somebody told me to read the book that it was life-changing, I totally rolled my eyes. I'm like, whatever. Okay, I have become that woman. It is life-changing. It is an incredible book. And I like it. But one of the things that Gino says in there is that everybody should have a number. And in contingency practices, the number is going to look different. In a traditional like family law firm, basically the attorney's number and the paralegal's number is going to be billable hours. And you guys don't like to track your billable hours, even though it is so good if you track the billable hour. Do you know the history of the billable hour?
No.
Okay, I'm going to go off on a tangent. I actually love the billable hour. The billable hour was not invented as a billing tool. It was actually created to use as a management tool in Boston for, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting, for who provides indigent legal services?
Pro bono legal services. I don't know.
Yeah.
I used to work at a law center. That's what we did.
Yeah. So anyway, for that was who invented it, because he needed to understand if his people were working or not. And that is what the billable hour does. And it's so fabulous. So, but you guys refuse to use it. So yeah, whatever. But
I was about to say, like, my feeling as soon as I started building, like, my whole inside started getting.
I know. Yeah. And you want to like throw up and punch me in the face at the same time. I get it.
I didn't say that.
I know.
Okay, sorry. I didn't make it up.
But so anyway, so everybody needs a number, and in contingency, it needs to be a number that you can drive. So I was talking to a guy one time and he said, oh yeah, each of my attorneys needs to settle a case and bring in $25,000 each week. I'm like, that's a little late in the process, collect 25,000. What you really need him to do is have him file 3 demand packages every week. See how that's earlier?
Yep.
And something he can control.
Yep.
Everybody needs a number. So everybody needs a number, and then you need to track that, and you need to drive it, and you need to make sure your people are being productive. So I guess the thing that makes me want to throttle attorneys, besides the fact that you all refuse to use the billable hour, which really is kind of a hot button with me, and whatever, y'all won't do it, is data. You guys have so much data, and contingency firms are run on data.
So
track it.
One of my questions that directly relates to that is most of the contingency fee practices that I know, they have somebody on staff that runs the books and makes sure rent's paid, and like they have someone that's doing those tasks, right? So like how is your approach different than that, right? Because I know it's very different, right? But I feel like I could see somebody on being like, well, yeah, I already have John Doe or Jane Doe, and they work the books great, and I don't need someone to work the books, right? So it's like what are we talking about? Because we're not talking about that, right?
We're not talking about that. I mean, we can do that. We can. That's not why people hire us. Exactly. And we only do it if you have hired us as your CFO. So as your CFO, we're looking at the strategy. How are you growing? What is working? What is not working? How can we become more productive? We build a team for you within CathCap that has a CFO that is all about the strategy, right? The growth, being more profitable. We assign you an analyst. The analyst is all about the data. It's digging in. It's understanding how your cases work. It's understanding your marketing. What's working, what's not working, what's giving us a good ROI, return on investment, what's not. These TV ads are awesome. Those TV ads suck. This billboard only works in the summer. That billboard only works in the winter. Let's make some good decisions here. We also give you a controller, and that controller is there to support your bookkeeper, to support John Doe, who pays the bills and does all of that, because there are times when they're confronted with situations that they don't understand. And they're like, I don't know how to deal with this particular thing. And we have found that in most cases, in most firms, the owner is a big bottleneck. So we've created a team that supports the entire law firm and not just the owner, because that's the way we can get things done.
Mm-hmm. So we have about 5 minutes remaining. I want to leave it open for questions. So everyone, if you want, on the right hand of your screen, you'll see a questions tab. You can ask anything. Brooke and I will answer it live. If you have questions that come up later, feel free to email us. We'll just keep talking because Brooke and I can probably talk for forever. So we're going to keep talking. If you guys have questions, please ask them. And if not, like, we'll just keep providing more information.
Yeah, because I don't think we've even talked about any of the stuff we thought we were going to talk about today, have we?
Yeah, that sometimes happens. Well, I'll just say one of the ways that we are able to partner together a lot of the time is we're able to do, so we will structure attorney fees, right? We'll do attorney fee deferrals. So attorneys, instead of that person taking that $5 million in 1 year, they'll be able to stretch it out over a period of years. And what we'll learn in doing so is a lot of the law firms we work with will say, okay, well, like, when do you want to receive the funds? And they'll say, well, we have no idea. And if you're one of the attorneys that says, well, I have no idea, that means you don't have someone who's driving your financial strategy. That means you likely don't have a CFO in place and an analyst, as well as a comptroller who's telling you, okay, this is really what you should be doing. And so a lot of the times what we'll end up, it'll go back and forth, right? Like, so I'll be calling Brooke being like, look, there's this firm, they're extremely successful, they're deferring millions of dollars in fees, and they don't have a clue. They're incredible trial attorneys, but they don't know how to run, they don't know how to run a business. And so could you kind of show them the ropes? And the one thing I love about Brooke's team is it's not only like, oh, we're going to pass this off to them. There's an educational component that improves the whole practice. And that's just something that I'll share. But I mean, Brooke, do you want to talk about that a little bit, about how like the John Doe bookkeeper, the Jane Doe bookkeeper, like they become more of an asset to the firm through partnering with CathCap, right? So like it oftentimes is going to be seen, like, for me, my gut is like, in my family practice, the person who runs the books is literally family, right? It's like, I'm not going to ostracize family. I'm not going to push out family. That's wrong. That's right. But that's not what we're doing, right?
No.
We're augmenting, we're educating, we're building.
So there's, we talk a lot about, a lot of people on here have probably heard, you want to have the right people on the bus and you want them in the right seat on the bus. Everyone's heard about the bus, right? So we very often say there are multiple financial people on the bus. There's the bookkeeper, and the bookkeeper sits in the back of the bus. And they say, oh, we hit a pothole back there. And they write down that we hit a pothole. Oh, we hit one of the buttons in the middle of the road. Oh, there's a blue car behind us. Oh, we passed a green car. and they very dutifully record everything that has already happened because they're looking out of the back of the bus. Then there is the CFO. And the CFO is kind of standing in the front of the bus, looking out of that big, huge, wide window. And they're standing right next to the CEO, right next to the owner, right next to the bus driver, saying, okay, now there's a pothole up there, and I want you to steer a little to the left to avoid that. Okay, now we're coming to a fork in the road. And from past experience, I know that if we go to the right, it's much smoother sailing than if we go to the left. Okay. And then there's a controller that's kind of in the middle of the bus that's passing information back and forth between the bookkeeper and the CFO. And so they're very different positions and they do very different things. So, you know, we are absolutely not saying fire your husband, fire your wife, the bookkeeper. You need to trust the person that is doing your bookkeeping, and very often that is a family member. And very often it is a family member that doesn't have a background in that. And that's why we put a controller on the team, so that they're there as a resource, there to help out.
And oftentimes, and this is a small sample size of experience, but oftentimes what occurs is that the bookkeeper is really appreciative because their voice is now heard, right? Like the comments that they've been making for the past 10 years to the law firm owner that were being disregarded all of a sudden are now informing the company policy, and the owner's still making all the decisions, but they're making informed decisions based upon data metrics that's able to allow them to do better service for their clients, get better results for their clients, and serve more people.
Well, and the other thing that happens is all the times they were unsure, they're actually now getting answers. So they're feeling more confident in what they're doing.
Yes.
And all the times where they didn't know the answer and they couldn't find the Google answer and they didn't want to go to the owner and look like a moron, yeah, they don't have to do that anymore either.
It really is cool. It really is cool. So we're coming up against 2:30. I have a few more questions if you're okay to stay on.
Yeah, I'm good. I thought we were doing this for an hour. So man, I am settled in and ready to go. I even have some water.
We're all set then. Let's just keep going for a little bit longer. If all of you drop off, we'll stop eventually. But we still have a lot of people on. So my next question is, you mentioned marketing briefly, right? You were talking about ads, like this ad works, this ad doesn't. Can you talk a little bit about how you connect the CFO approach to marketing, and sort of how the data side of things plays out within the firm picture?
Yeah, so let me be very clear. We don't know jack squat about marketing.
Okay.
What we do know, what we can do, is connect calls coming in. We can connect fees coming in to money spent to get those calls, to get those fees. So we can look and say, we spent $10,000 on a billboard this month, and we got 2 phone calls from it. Now, if your average case value is $5,000, then all we did was pay for that billboard, right? Well, wait, hold on. Whoa. We got 2 phone calls. Our average case value was $5,000. But of every call we get, we only sign up 50% of them. So we got 2 calls. Statistically, we signed 1 up. So we spent $10,000 and got $5,000 back. Yeah, we're not doing that again. So we're looking at it, we're analyzing it, we're looking at things like conversion rates. How many people called? Of the people who called, how many were qualified? How many called and wanted a divorce? There's so many firms that don't track that. Like, well, they didn't call for my kind of law. I'm like, yeah, and I need to know that. They're like, why do you need to know that? Well, basically, so we can whack your marketing firm over the head with it. If a third of the calls are coming in for the type of law that you don't practice, we got a problem with the marketing firm. They're not excluding stuff, and you are paying to get calls for stuff you don't want.
And Brooke, like all like the points you're making are well received and very clear, and they're all relatively simple points, right? But they're things that get lost. That's the thing that I always, and even at the most successful of firms, like I work with mass tort attorneys that are considered most like the head of litigations that impact tens of thousands of people. And what
Yeah.
gets lost, even at the highest levels, is you're so busy doing your depots and running your firm that just the simple considerations get lost. And those processes, they lag, right? And when they lag, the whole practice suffers. And so the best run firms from my point of view, being able to work with hundreds of firms across the country every year, they're typically reliant on a team to analyze
Yes.
those business propositions in order to positively impact the clients, right? And if we don't have the clients at the highest level, right? If we're not impacting clients on the highest level, what are we even doing in the space, right?
Right.
And also, if we get better results for our clients, we get better results for ourselves. And so you're able to, make a lot more money, but by doing things the right way.
Yeah. What's the expression? A rising tide lifts all boats.
Mhm.
The better you do for your clients, the better you do for yourself. But yes, and as attorneys, you do get swept up in actually practicing law. And you should. That's what you do. That's probably what your passion is. And that's awesome. And a lot of attorneys really do get swept up in marketing. It's kind of sexy, it's kind of fun, they really like it. And that's great too. But yeah, that back end, those kind of mechanical things that I'm talking about, all that data, that is really important. And yes, there are firms that have whole teams that do nothing, that crunch data all day. But we're not all Morgan and Morgan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So outsource it. Find people who can help you. Because yeah, most attorneys can only juggle so many balls. They can only keep so many plates spinning.
Yeah. And
So
one of the
find
points
people that can come in to help you with those higher level things.
And one of the points on that as well is that I've seen a few firms where they'll hire somebody in sort of like a CFO position, and that person then leaves after 3 years, and then the firm is just in shambles, right? Because in order to accurately and effectively do a long-term financial solution, you need someone who's going to be there.
Yeah.
And you need someone who's not just going to, and frankly, with the way the employment market is today, people shift. I mean, I'm a millennial. Like our generation, average time spent in a position is less than 3 years. And so,
Wow.
if you're hiring a really great and talented person in their, mid 30s, early 40s to run your practice, right? Someone who's educated and experienced and able to do it, are you really relying on them to be there for the next decade? Because if you are, that might not be the best reliance to make.
Yeah.
And so that's where like a solution like CathCat to me makes even more sense, right? Because it's a reliable source of
Yeah.
constant improvement.
We have depth of bench, and that's also part of the reason why we started building teams. Because if your CFO goes on vacation, so we have a pod system, like so many contingency attorneys, and each pod has 2 CFOs. So if one CFO goes on vacation, the other CFO is there and knows enough to answer questions while your primary CFO is gone. But your analyst knows everything that's going on. Your controller knows what's going on. So there are always people. And yeah, we have multiple pods. We're always bringing people in. We have longevity. But the other thing about hiring someone that's fractional, a lot of firms, there are a lot of firms that we're spending $150,000 a year on a CFO isn't maybe the best use of $150,000. And second, that person might be bored. And that person may not want to do all the analyst work. They probably don't want to do the controller work because, kind of once you get to the CFO level, you're like, oh no, I've done that. I'm not going back there. There is a hierarchy in finance.
You bring it out, and honestly, I really appreciate it. If anyone thinks Brooke would pull any punches, she is not. Like, that is, yes, that's correct. That's correct.
So, it's having it in-house is great, but you really do have to be a certain size to keep them busy. And a CFO is gonna need a team.
Yep.
They're probably gonna want their own controller. They're probably, so, by the time you get a CFO, you've got 2 to 5 people working for them. That's why having an outsourced thing is so nice. And for a lot of different things, it's nice to outsource it because you get the skill set, you get the multiple people at a much better rate.
Yeah. One of the, so I have one more question and then I want to hear some more stories. So
Okay.
my last question is, you briefly mentioned price, right?
Yeah.
And I know it's impossible to do because we're talking about consulting services and every firm's different, every firm's had a different starting point. Could you just give like some sort of guidance for like, solo practitioner just getting started, 5 to 10 attorneys, mid-sized PI firm, 25 attorneys, decent sized PI firm? Like, what does that look like in each scenario?
So you're really trying to pin me against a wall on this?
Not really. I mean, not large.
So, all right, here's the thing. We are flat fee because I think that aligns everybody's interests. It's less about size of the firm and more about the speed at which you want to move.
Okay.
So we have found the smaller firms are not as nimble and can't move as fast because they just don't have the number of people and they don't have the bandwidth.
Mm-hmm.
So we tend to meet with them about every other week, kind of twice a month. The bigger firms, the ones that have a full-on dedicated, honest to God COO, or if you're a traction company, an integrator, or whatever you want to call it, that have like 15, 20, 30 attorneys, those we tend to meet with every week.
Okay.
So, $4,000 to $10,000 a month, kind of depending upon frequency.
Oh, wow. That's a lot less expensive than I thought it was going to be. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, we're a great value.
Yeah, no, that's a huge, I mean, just on the tax guidance alone, like just, the firms that we've partnered with together, like we've saved them more than that in a year in taxes. So, I mean, like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Do you have any fun war stories before we leave? I kids as trial attorneys, we grew up hearing war stories around the dinner table. That's all that it was, right? So, I mean, any sort of like, I went into this place and, it was full of rats and falling apart and we fixed it up. Like,
oh, well, I didn't think that. I was going to tell you a funny personal war story.
oh, well, that's okay too.
All right. So it was when I was running my father's law firm, and he was a corporate litigator, but every now and then, those contingency cases come along. And so he had a contingency case come along, and they were out in the next county trying this case. And I get a call from one of his associates, and he's like, all right, well, I'm calling you because you're the financial person. I'm like, okay. He's like, how much should we ask for in damages? I'm like, you've been in trial for a freaking week, and you're just now thinking that maybe you should ask me this? I'm like, I'm supposed to grab an envelope? I'm like, I don't know. So like 5 minutes of back and forth, and like, I don't know, I pull some number out of my rear end, but I'm like, I really don't know. So they go in, they ask for nothing. They don't put a number out. They're like, this is either going to go really, really well or really, really bad. Jury comes back. $250 million in damages. Biggest jury verdict in that county.
That's a fun win.
Yeah, that was a lot different than the number I had proposed. Now, interesting fun fact, if they had gone with the number I had proposed, they probably would have gotten it and collected it, because what happens when you have a $250 million jury verdict?
You're in appeals for the next 5 years. We want to focus on the negative of our work, though. There is one question that's been submitted.
Oh, okay.
So it's asking about like fee and some plans. So I'm going to ask it as direct as I can. So, and thank you for the question. It's from one of my favorite people. Hi. It's what is the length of time that people generally use your services? Do they ever get analytics and a plan without having to have the full team full time forever?
So our goal is that people don't stay with us forever. If you stay with us forever, we've kind of failed. So our goal is for one of two things to happen. Either we get you really stable, we teach you everything you need to know to keep running your firm, and we say goodbye. Or we grow and scale you to a point where you need to bring it in-house. So, we just graduated a firm out in the Midwest a few months ago, and, we kept adding people to his team, and he had a bookkeeper when he started, and we had helped him hire the controller, and we kept kind of building out his financial team until finally it was the CFO. And we're like, see ya, time for us to go. And that's really our goal, is to build you out and grow you until you're no longer a client. And then you asked about not having the whole team. Do you ever get analytics and a plan without having to have
the team time forever? Yeah, I think you answered the question. So I really like that term I've heard you and your team use, the idea of graduating, right? So it's you guys come in almost as like business consultants, you get the data set, you make sure there's a vision, you get a plan in place, and then it's like you guys are you're ready to fly, right? And so is there any sort of estimate in time length of like what that is? I understand it's probably different for different firms and different goals, but
it really does. It depends. Let me give the attorney answer again. It depends. I think it anywhere between and I haven't looked at our numbers recently. We have
Brooke,
some clients that have been with us for 5 years.
I know. You're like
I would say between 18 months and 3 years.
18 months and 3 years? Okay. That's shorter than I expected it to be. That's awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
Look, it is not our goal to milk clients for fees.
Yeah.
That is not driving profit.
No. I mean, you guys are busy. You guys have too many firms to talk to anyways. Frankly. Or at least that's what I see.
I want people to make money, and I want it, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's what it comes down to.
All right, well, we gave everybody a little bit of an extra 15 minutes. If anyone else has any questions, we are here. Thank you to our attendees that stayed on until the end. I really appreciate it as always. I speak highly for Cath Capital. Your guys' reputation is sterling, that is glowing, and I've only ever had pleasant interactions and heard positive things. So we're happy that you are a trusted partner of Milestone. If anyone has any questions, we can connect you directly to Brooke. You can find her through a quick Google search for Cath Capital and Brooke Lively. Do you want to, we'll send out an email to everyone who attended. You'll get all of the contact information, everything, if you want to reach out. And then, is there any last words you want to say? Is there anything else you want to include?
Yeah. I just, I was so happy when I met you guys and learned what you did. I love working with people like you guys who are really doing things in the best interest of their clients and providing a great service. And you guys do. And it's why we like sending you clients.
Thank you. That's greatly appreciated. And we'll continue to do our best. Also, I think it's pretty clear that women-led organizations are typically, pretty kick-ass. As the only male director here, I will say that every other director does twice the work that I do and probably twice as good of a job. It's really awesome to see the space growing and changing for the better, in my humble opinion. And so, Brooke, pleasure as always, and I hope we get a chance to connect soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Sam.
Of course. And thank you everyone for attending. Bye-bye.